The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is... This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Dr. Ben Goertzel, the scientist, futurist, author, and entrepreneur. You are considered one of the world's foremost experts in artificial general intelligence and have submitted over 150 technical papers and published 25 scientific books on the subject. In 2017, you founded Singularity Net with the goal of creating a decentralized, democratic, inclusive, and beneficial artificial general intelligence. Your latest project, zarqa, is a supercharged, intelligent, Neural-Symbolic large language model at massive scale and promises to take on OpenAI's ChatGPT, but go much, much further. You believe that your advanced Neural-Symbolic AI techniques will revolutionize and disrupt every industry, taking a giant step towards artificial general intelligence, or AGI. Ultimately, your goal is to realize a positive and beneficial singularity for the good of all humanity by building sentient beings of the future to be loving, caring, compassionate, inclusive, and democratic. Ben, welcome back to London Real.
Hey, great to be back. Great to be back. And every time we talk, there's all sorts of new stuff going on. So these are amazing times to be doing AI.
Yeah, it's great to check in because so much changes like every single month. I want to jump into it. Before we get started, I just want to say that if anyone is interested in learning more about your new project, zarqa, they can go to londonreal.tv/zarqa to request more information. We will be investing in zarqa through London Real Ventures, and we're very excited to support you on this venture. What is the state of the union on AI? I know you're traveling the world. You're at so many conferences I can't keep track of. You have so many projects going on in the Singularity Net ecosystem, and obviously zarqa as well. But there's some big announcements. We saw Mistral in France raise $100 million. It's a 4-week-old company. I mean, there are some big checks being written, a lot being talked about AI. What did you make of that fundraising, and what do you see happening right now, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, it's well known that venture capitalists are herd animals, right? And I mean, it's a myth that most VCs are embracing risk. So I mean, most VCs are trying to do what they think will give them the most guaranteed payout with the least amount of risk and the least amount of thinking required. That pardon my cynicism. So whether or not something makes sense or has fundamental value or whatever, once they start piling on, everyone will pile on. Now, in this case, generative AI is a real thing, right? I mean, it's a real working technology, and it's being rolled out by many parties across many vertical markets, and it's actually delivering real value. So all VCs piling on top of it is not the worst thing in the history of venture capital, right? That they've piled on to much less productive and meaningful things in history. But still the nature of the market froth for generative AI means that careful evaluation of the sort of unique scientific and business prospects of each project are not. This evaluation is not always happening, right? And I don't want to say anything bad about any particular project. I mean, for one, I don't know the details of all these projects I'm not involved with. But I mean, I would say what you'll generally see in this climate is, you know, people who have some status markers or connections with the VC, plunging into the hot market and just getting insane amounts of money, even if sometimes they don't have a unique technology or viable business plan. And some of these will end up succeeding very well just because business world is random. And I mean, being in the right place at the right time counts for a lot. But I think in any boom, there's going to be a lot of randomness. Some things that are no good will get funded. Some things that are fantastic will get funded. And out of all that, what you see is a new layer of infrastructure is built, right? Like we're both old enough to remember .com craze, right? In the late 90s and 2000, all sorts of money went into like, petfood.com, or I remember a website called, they originally called it mywifehasballs.com. They changed it to justballs.com. Amazing idea. Sell balls on the web, soccer balls, golf balls, basketballs. This raised ridiculous amounts of venture money to sell balls on the web, right? So loads of nonsense, too much money put into some things that really don't make sense. On the other hand, on the whole, what happened through that .com boom was, the foundations of internet business and web business. It all got built, right? And I mean that's what we're seeing now. There's crazy random things happening and amazing foundational things happening. Some people will make money, some will lose money. Certainly there will be boom and bust cycles. But I mean, out of all this, a new foundation for a large chunk of the world economy will get built, which is generative AI gradually being rolled out across every sector, and in the end eliminating who knows how much, maybe 80% of the work people have to do. The interesting thing now, though, is while that's still underway, like while the slower moving industries are still working on transforming themselves via generative AI, because I mean, McDonald's and say a cup factory, right? These are not going to transform to use generative AI as fast as graphic arts or software engineering industries do. So while these slow moving industries are still in the midst of adopting generative AI, you're going to see the next AI revolution, which will be a bigger step toward general intelligence with systems that are better at multi-step reasoning and better at creative invention. And then the faster moving industries will start adapting these new technologies that are even closer to AGI. And in the meantime, the slower moving industries will be like, what? We were just in the middle of integrating large language models. Now you're telling me I need to integrate these neural-symbolic thinking machines, right? So it should be quite interesting. And I mean, the VCs as well as the executives of businesses in less dynamic vertical markets are going to be struggling to keep up. But of course, the listeners to your media network will not be struggling to keep up because you're telling them exactly what's going on all the time.
Have your visions or speed of adoptions changed at all? I mean, when you were on this show, Ben, 4 years ago, you were kind of talking about AGI maybe at 2029 levels. And again, this massive super intelligence maybe at 2045. When you came on back in January, you said the AGI level could be in 2025 or 26. And then maybe this super intelligence could come soon after.
Well, I think GPT-4 was a black swan event that changed everyone's estimates of the time with which various transformations will happen. Didn't change mine as much as some people's, right? I mean, many people I know have come to me and said, wow, Ben, you were always talking about AGI. I sort of thought, that was kind of a bunch of blah, 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 and this was indefinitely long in the future. But now that I screw with GPT-4, okay, this is not AGI, but I can see, like, if that can happen, maybe all the other crazy stuff you've been talking about for decades, Ben, could happen. So it seems like many people shifted their mindset in a sort of dramatic way. Now, for me, it's all in everything that's unfolding now with GPT-4 is in accordance, basically, with the story I've been telling myself and others for a very long time. But yeah, the precise timelines that I'm conjecturing have adjusted a bit. I've often been fairly in line with Ray Kurzweil's projection of getting human level AI by 2029. And I've also often thought that Ray's idea we get human level AI 2029, then superhuman AI in 2045 didn't make sense. Like, why would you have 16 years between the two? It should be at most a couple years between the two, unless the AGI intentionally slows down its own development or something, right? So, as I said to you before, GPT-4 really has gotten just the world way more excited about AGI, which puts extra resources in AGI, money, but also compute resources and just people's attention, right? So I think these added resources going into AGI could nudge it a couple of years sooner than 2029. It could be 2026 or 8 or something. I still think getting to human level AGI after that, in principle, it should only be a couple more years to get to superhuman AGI, because the AGI is going to rewrite and recode its own self, right? And the thing is, a year or two plus or minus means nothing in the scheme of humanity, right? So the fact that this or that thing nudges forward or backward by a year or two, I mean, it means something to us in planning out our businesses and our careers in particular, right? But obviously, in the scope of things, I mean, it's a very minor adjustment. And I mean, you also have to consider we could have another worse pandemic. There could be another major war, similar or bigger than the one in Ukraine, right? I mean, a lot of things could happen that slow down progress, just as crazy things could happen that speed up progress. Like if we get a legendary crypto boom, then suddenly Singularity Net would have dramatically more resources, which would probably accelerate things toward AGI, right? So there's a lot of factors that make it hard to pin down timelines super precisely.
And Ben, for people that might not know, everybody's probably played with and tested, ChatGPT 4. And again, that's a narrow AI and it can do some amazing things. But, you're always trying to explain to people that what you've been working on for the last 10, 20, 30 years is this human level intelligence, this artificial general intelligence. And obviously Zarqa is all about taking Neural-Symbolic AI, this concept of giving it logical reasoning and combining it with a large language model like ChatGPT to get you what you've been working on for so long. For the person out there in the public, how do they see that as one versus the other? How would you explain that to someone, like my mom?
Well, I don't know your mom. For all I know, she has a PhD in particle physics, but yeah, I think that a system like ChatGPT, it's a very interesting cognitive system. It's not built that much like a human brain or mind, which is fine. I mean, a calculator is very good at multiplying and dividing numbers, although it doesn't do it much the way the human brain does. In fact, that's why it's so much better than the human brain at quickly multiplying and dividing large numbers, right? I mean, only a few very autistic people can make their brains act like a calculator, and that's usually at their cost of their brain not doing some everyday stuff very well. So system like ChatGPT, it's got more data in it of various sorts than any one of our brains, right? So it's got so much data in it that can answer an awful lot of questions, do an awful lot of things just by copying things that it has read, because it's read everything on the web. So if you have that much data at your mind's fingertips, right? Using all that data, you can then take questions or tasks and so forth and say, well, have I seen anything like that in the back of my mind? Let's just do something similar to what I've seen before. And large language models like ChatGPT are very good at that. It's a very good trick. I mean, it's tremendous economic value because you're like summarizing all of human knowledge and culture in a concentrated way in a system that can do specific focused things often without a human in the loop, right? On the other hand, the human brain and mind are doing something different from that. We have less knowledge than the ChatGPT type system, but we're able to take bigger leaps beyond our knowledge. And this means we're often wrong and screw things up a lot. On the other hand, every now and then, we can come up with something that's unprecedented. And a chat GPT is much less likely to come up with something that's unprecedented, that's combining what was fed into it. Now, from an economic standpoint, most of the things people make money for in the world economy don't require doing something unprecedented, right? I mean, being a scientist does, almost by definition. You're doing chains of original reasoning going beyond current knowledge. That's why it's original science. Creating like radically new breakthrough art also does. I mean, you're showing things in a totally different way than anybody did before. That's what makes it amazing. And I mean, doing strategy for a business or government, charting your way into the unknown future requires your mind to think about the unprecedented. But that's on the whole a very small percent of the economy, right? So I think just summarizing human knowledge and culture in a machine that can deploy it judiciously in each new context, that's amazing. But then there's also applications out there that require a little more than that. And it's not such a fine line, right? So if you look in, say, economics, ChatGPT gets a 0 or close to 0 on an undergraduate economics exam. And same with undergraduate physics exam or something. If you look in mathematics, doesn't do well on high school math, let alone number theory or topology or something that a math major does. It does well on SAT, LSAT, like these exams where there's many copies of these exams on the internet for it to study from. So in many businesses, of course, you do need to understand a bit of economics or a bit of engineering or some sort of formal or technical area beyond just rearranging text. And if you look at the law as another example, okay, most of lawyers I've dealt with are taking some template out of the file drawer, tweaking it a bit for your case. ChatGPT can already do that, and a smarter version will do it even better. On the other hand, there's also genuine legal innovation out there. I mean, we're hoping the US government will pull that out of its hat, right? It's trying to make regulations for cryptocurrencies and doing an extraordinarily miserable job of it so far, as far as I can tell. I mean, Europe with the MiCA regulations has done a better job of making up sensible regulation for the crypto sector. But that's a case where lawyers are dealing with something unprecedented. Like ChatGPT could not write the MiCA regulations that for crypto in the EU, but that sort of intersection of formal knowledge, the law in that case, and common sense knowledge, it's not that much of what people get paid to do. So I think one thing that interests me, though, is integrating a system like ChatGPT with other kinds of AI that can add some missing ingredients. So we have AI that does sustained multi-step logical reasoning quite well. If we integrate that with a ChatGPT type system, then it could do things like dealing with advanced legal puzzles, or pass an undergraduate economics exam, or help do engineering, right? On the other hand, we have an AI method called evolutionary learning that simulates the process of evolution by natural selection. If you want to answer a problem with evolutionary learning, you take some random guesses, see how well they work, take the better ones, mutate them, combine them, see how well these new ones work, mutate, combine, evaluate, sort of like an evolutionary process. This is an AI algorithm that's very good at creativity. It can come up with wild new things. So by intersecting this evolutionary algorithm type AI with an LLM, you may get something that's better at being creative in the way that a good human artist is, and like jumping beyond what's in the training database. So I have a framework called OpenCog, of which we have a new version called OpenCog Hyperon, which is really good at combining together multiple different AI approaches in a common software runtime. So we have this big knowledge graph called the OpenCog atom space, where the atoms are just pieces of knowledge and relations between them. We have this big knowledge graph running across many different machines, deployed decentralized using SingularityNet, Hypercycle, NuNet, right? This knowledge graph, and we can put large language models in there. We can put a logical reasoning engine in there. We can put evolutionary learning in there, put multiple AI methods in there, and let them work together. And I think this can let us take the next big leap beyond ChatGPT. So I think by merging large language models with logical reasoning and evolutionary learning, you can make another black swan event equivalent to or bigger than the black swan event of ChatGPT. Not necessarily quite yet to human level AGI even. You're just making like a language model that can reason and create better, but that will, finish a bunch of the job that ChatGPT started. And then a year or two after that, maybe we'll have the following, the biggest, fattest, most glorious black swan, which will be the transition to AGI. And yeah, in the zarqa project that you've mentioned and that you've been helping out with a bit, in zarqa we're looking at building a custom LLM supercomputer using the knowledge we have of building supercomputer clusters, and on that training LLMs together with symbolic and evolutionary learning from the OpenCog system, and using that to make basically something similar to ChatGPT, but a whole lot smarter. And then with True AGI, another business in SingularityNet ecosystem, we're looking at taking this OpenCog Hyperon integrated AGI toolkit and rolling it out for the enterprise in various enterprise APIs, right? So I mean, I think, yeah, some people think differently, that you can take LLMs and sort of tweak them and add a little bit onto them, and they'll just keep getting smarter and smarter and smarter without bound. I think that's not quite true. I think they can be part of a much smarter system, but you need to add some other quite different AI components into the system also, which is what we're working on.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.